Okay, so you should be able to see my PowerPoint. Can I just get a thumbs up if you can? Wonderful. Okay. And now you should see that it takes up the whole screen. Is that accurate? Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining. There's so many people here. I'm so overwhelmed. Joking, but thank you for taking time out of your afternoon to be here live or watching this on the recording. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Dr. Marianne Long, and I am the Director of Postdoctoral Affairs and Graduate Fellowships here at UTEP. And I'm a new minor. I just started here in January. And prior to this, I was a postdoctoral researcher at New Mexico State University. And so I'm super excited to be here and help our postdocs and also our graduate students in their quest for external funding. And so today's goal of this presentation is to provide you with skills and information needed to effectively search for funding to support your graduate education. So by the time you're done today, you're not going to walk out with a scholarship check for a couple $1,000s, although that would be nice and I would actually like one myself. But I'm going to teach you some skills and direct you to resources that you need as a current graduate student or prospective graduate student to identify how can you fund your research and how can you fund your education. Now, because there's only a few of us here, if there's a pressing question that you have throughout this, raise your hand, shout it out, put it in the chat, whatever it is. But I will also have time at the end for you to ask questions. So one thing I wanted to make clear is really the purpose of this session is to talk about finding external funding. And so I wanted to address what's an external fellowship. Well, I wanted to point out that their fellowships you may hear interchangeably with scholarships, but there is in fact a difference. So fellowships are usually for research or advanced studies, and scholarships are generally just for your tuition, right? So when you get your tuition bill, you use your tuition to take courses. So you may have other opportunities or outside work to do research. Maybe you have a part-time job. Fellowships help offset that they're giving you a stipend in order to fulfill your research. And external fellowships include money provided by an external funding source or agency. So you may have an internal fellowship at the university, meaning the university pays you. But for external fellowships, another agency or funding source pays you or pays for your experience. And so, as I mentioned earlier about I want to embed some really important skills with you today, I'm going to start off by telling you that the key to looking and applying for external fellowships comes down to time management. And it really is important to consider planning ahead. And I want to applaud both Luis and Chandler for being here because not only did you register for this ahead of time, but you showed up and you're here. And that's the first step in planning ahead for your future. And if you feel comfortable unmuting, I just want to get a sense from you all. If you're thinking about applying for any type of scholarship or external fellowship, how early do you think you need to be planning?
There's no like time
No time? No?
specific, I guess. Like today.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, today is the best day to start.
Okay. Chandler, I see that you have unmuted. What do you think?
If it's like the GRFP, probably like a year ahead.
Yes, yes. Usually these application processes take a year, right? And so you're thinking about the next applying for your next academic year. And so sometimes I meet with folks who think, oh, I just need a few weeks to complete my application. But no, that's totally a myth. You need to give yourself a lot of time because chances are this is a year ahead. And you want to have your materials ready. And so no matter what type of fellowship or program you apply for, chances are it's going to need a lot of documents. And these are just some that I can think of off the top of my head. So a personal statement, why do you want to pursue this particular fellowship or program? What does it mean to you? What does it mean for your career? Your CV or your resume, depending on your discipline. If you are doing research, you're going to have a separate document that either outlines a proposal for your research study or simply a research statement that talks about what are your research interests and how are you designing your study from design, method, implementation, analyses, and potential findings. You may need a good list of references or reference letters. And so you're reaching out to usually faculty, asking them for a strong and positive reference, right? There's a difference between going to someone and saying, hey, will you be my reference? Will you write me a reference letter? Versus, hey, will you write me a strong and positive reference letter for this particular program? You also may need some sort of endorsement or letter from the university, and that varies by fellowship that you're applying for. And I'll talk more about that later. And then sometimes it requires multiple essays. So the fellowship that you're applying for may prompt you to say, please include a 3-page essay onto, why you want to be involved with this, what it means to you. So those are just some of the materials that you may need. And if you think about applying for these in all these different documents, you're going to want to identify who can help you write these, right? Maybe that's me, maybe that's a professor, maybe that's a career center, multiple different folks would be able to help you with these things. But it all comes down to your planning and your effort, right? So really identifying what materials do you have already set and what do you need. You want to talk with your advisor, right? And if you're a current graduate student or an incoming graduate student, you know the importance of adhering to timelines, right? And sometimes you're in a program and the class that you need to take is only offered once a year, right? And so if you're applying for a fellowship that involves study abroad, if it involves extra courses, you want to talk to your advisor to make sure not only are you meeting the requirements of your program right now, but that if you were to add this fellowship experience onto your journey, will that be feasible in order for you to complete your research and your degree on time? And then, of course, as I said before, there's so many deadlines. And not only are you keeping deadlines for yourself, right? The dates that you have to submit things by, but if you're relying on other people, your references, you're going to want to have a deadline for them as well. That if your application is due June 1st, chances are you want to be asking your advisors to submit your references to you by May 25th, right? Give them a little bit of time. They're busy people, you're a busy person, but you want to make sure that you get everything completed. And so you're keeping deadlines not only for yourself, but for the people that are turning things into you. So the purpose of this was to teach you how to look for funding. And so this is the exciting part. And so I want to leave you with some tools and resources that you can use to look for opportunities for external fellowships. So first and foremost, I'll tell you that oftentimes the information that you need is right in front of you. And so if you have not established a relationship with your advisor or with your department, start doing that. Because chances are the faculty in your discipline, they're receiving notices from opportunities for students to apply for. Sometimes the faculty can be really, really generous and share those opportunities with you. Sometimes they can't even think of anyone who might be a fit for these opportunities. And so establishing those relationships with your advisors, with your department, to find out what are those opportunities. And if they're not communicating those to you, ask, because sometimes the information is left in the question that's not asked, right? And so making sure to establish those relationships in your department, identify, asking your professors, what are the opportunities that you see that I might be able to apply for? So, I'm not sure what your disciplines are, if you wanted to maybe drop it in the chat, but oftentimes there are professional associations that are related to your discipline. So let's say that you're going for your PhD in napping, right? Maybe there's a professional napping association. I mean, I would love that. And by getting on the professional napping association listserv, you can see these opportunities that arise. So they might be sending out information about workshops or trainings, but they also may be sending out, okay, there's a scholarship or fellowship available for you that you can apply for through the Professional Napping Association. Now, I use that as an example, but fill in the blank of your discipline. And I do see that a few folks have chatted computer science, ecology, and evolutionary biology. I bet you there are definitely associations related to those disciplines. If you don't know about that, find out. And how do you find out? Ask your mentor, ask your advisor, ask students who are ahead of you in your field. If you've done an internship, ask supervisors from your internship about what associations should you start getting involved with. Sometimes there are membership fees in order to become a member, but I'll tell you that as a graduate student, everything is discounted. So usually you either get a membership for free as a graduate student or a significant discount for that. Now I want to talk about, the graduate school. So I mentioned earlier that I work for the graduate school. And so anytime the graduate school gets information about external awards, we post it on our website. And so I'm going to stop my share. And let me just give a little pause. Are there any questions that maybe you have right now in the presentation that I can address before I share my screen with our website? Okay.
Quick question. Why do graduate students have like more privileges or
More
discounts?
privilege?
And it's discounts.
I'll tell you. Okay. So professional associations, they make their money from membership fees, right? And who's joining these organizations?
Undergrads?
Usually not necessarily undergrads, but usually faculty and staff, and they're making full-time money, right? And so we're going to pay more than a graduate student. And so graduate students get a little bit of a discount because you're a graduate student. They want to provide you all the opportunities available to you, but not burden you with a lot of fees. So that's why usually professional associations will offer a discount for graduate student membership. Great question.
Oh yeah, it's because I was confusing it with the student organizations, but I understand now.
No.
Yeah, the professional associations. Okay.
Professional associations. And yes, that brings up a good point. Thank you for bringing that up, because there's many times clubs and organizations available at UTEP that are associated with your discipline or major. But that's just internal, right? You want to think about, what are my networks outside of the university? Because a lot of these professional organizations or associations, they're providing awards for graduate students across the nation. So good point. And I'll share my screen once more about external funding. So if you haven't become familiar with our external funding website yet, please do. I encourage you to do so. And so you'll notice on top that there's an opportunity for you to look at past workshops, to connect you with Pivot, which I'll talk about in a moment, and some other links as well. And then we also post on here upcoming training. So today you all registered for this information session. And then these are some upcoming award opportunities. So this is really important, especially I know someone said they're in a PhD program, but currently the university is soliciting applications for Google PhD fellowships. And so that application is due to the graduate school by April 23rd. And so this invites you to explore how to apply, what you need to apply. And I'm sure you all can attest to, Google is a really well-known company name, okay? If you qualify for this and you apply for this and you're competitive enough and you get a Google fellowship, chances are that may lead to future opportunities for you, right? And so take a look at this. If you're eligible, I encourage you to apply. Now, the NSF, they offer a variety of awards, the National Science Foundation, and this second opportunity here, the Holistic Design National Research Traineeship, that's available to you as well as MS and PhD students. Now for this, there are some stipulations about US citizenship, but anyone here can apply and participate in the program. But to be eligible for funding, you do need to consider your citizenship status. And that is an opportunity offered through UTEP, but it's funded through NSF, okay? And that application, July 1st. Okay, so take a look there if you're eligible. We also have this Department of Energy, DOE, Office of Science Graduate Student Research. That solicitation is coming up May 7th. You can click on that flyer. And then we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the NSF GRFP, which Chandler had already learned about, is also an application process coming up. And our colleague here, Miss Jen Green, works for the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards and runs those info sessions, as well as the info sessions for the Fulbright. And the Fulbright is available to masters and graduate students to obtain experience overseas. And that, I mentioned before, check with your advisor. If you think about you wanting to apply to Fulbright, wonderful opportunity, but definitely check with your advisor as a graduate student about, can I fit this into my work, and can I graduate in a reasonable amount of time if I were to go overseas. So lots of opportunities there, and then just some other opportunities and recommendations for ways to find other funding opportunities. So let me stop share on that, and I'll go through the next slides. It previews Pivot, and then I will also drop the Pivot website into the chat for you. So in the chat, I'm dropping the link to Pivot, and then I'll also drop the link to the graduate external funding. Okay, so Pivot is a database available to you as a UTEP graduate student. And when you log on to the link I just shared in the chat, you'll come to a page that looks like this. Search for funding. Ooh, so great. But you will need to create an account in order to access this. And so you'll click on using your email address to create the password, and you'll be able to select that you're an affiliated member of UTEP, okay? Because the institution has an account, and because you are a student, you have access through the institution. And I won't go into detail with this. If I have time at the end, I'll do a search. But you'll be able to do an advanced search, and you'll be able to identify, your discipline, your research area, if you want to take a class, anything associated with your with funding opportunities. And it'll bounce back all of these different fellowships and awards that you might be eligible based on your search. And then you can filter through those and you can see which of these am I feasibly able to apply for? And what are the deadlines? What are the requirements? All of that good stuff. And so if I have time at the end, I'll show you. And if not, I encourage you to reach out to me and I can walk you through Pivot at a later date. But it's definitely a really great database to look for. And here you see like that advanced search, okay? If you want to look for, you know, a great amount for it or your discipline in the fields, if you need to filter by citizenship, if you want to identify your current stage, if you're a doctoral student or a master's student, those are the filters that you can add to your search. And as you are considering different applications and different awards and going through these searches, I do have a few considerations for you to think about. So what are your
Oh,
yeah.
not to interrupt, but I think I got kicked out, or not kicked out, like my internet went out for a second. Did I miss anything? You were on Pivot?
I was on Pivot and I had shared that if I have time at the end of our session today, I'll do a mock search. And if not, I encourage you to reach out to me and I'm happy to walk you through
Okay,
your first
thank you.
search. Yes. And then as you are considering, you know, what you find in Pivot or some of these other awards and solicitations, I want to leave some considerations with you all. And that is really for you to consider what are your interests and what are your career goals. And so you want to make sure that you're intentionally applying for these programs, that they align with what you want to do, where you are at now, and how you're going to contribute to the program, and also what it's going to how it's going to benefit you, right? And I mentioned before, you know, the Professional Napping Association. Well, if your interest is in engineering, you're not going to want to apply for an award from the Professional Napping Association. You're going to want to do something that either aligns with your skill set or is going to provide you more skills necessary to advance in your career. And does the funder support your work? So if you want to go overseas to do research on, you know, building a bridge from Ireland to the Pacific Ocean, does the funder offer you money to enhance your skills, right? So is this opportunity going to support what you want to do? And are you qualified? Okay, so there's a number of qualifications and sometimes it's the year you are in your program. Sometimes it's have you entered candidacy phase for your doctoral or master's program? Sometimes it's citizenship. Sometimes it's just where you live in the United States. Maybe you have to be a resident of a certain state. And so there's a number of different qualifications that you as the potential applicant will have to go through and check mark, am I qualified? And of course, what are the requirements, right? Do you have to study abroad? Do you have to travel overseas? Do you have to do a number of community service hours if you are granted a fellowship in money in order to keep that funding? There's multiple different requirements that you'll want to consider as you apply for these awards. And of course, what do you want to gain from it? And that's going to be key because as you apply, if you're filling out essays or a personal statement, you want to articulate, as a result of this fellowship, as a result of this award, this is what I'm going to gain from it. And this, if I didn't have this opportunity, then I wouldn't be able to get where I need to go, right? And so being able to articulate that. And again, there's a number of resources across campus that can help you write those statements and review your essays as well. And I shouted out Miss Jen Green earlier, but I wanted just to inform you that two of the biggest programs that graduate students apply for are the US NSF, National Science Foundation, Graduate Research Fellowship Program, or GRFP for short, and the Fulbright student program, which allows you to go overseas. And these are upcoming info sessions for both of these, but here I wanted to pause, give Jen Green a platform to talk about what she does and any other advice that she may want to share about these two opportunities.
Yes. So, hi, everybody. I am the director of the Office of Student Fellowships and Awards. And the way I kind of interface with the graduate school is I work with select nationally competitive programs that both undergrads and grad students are applying for. The two most prominent being the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, which is 3 years of funding for a PhD in STEM, including the social sciences. One does have to be a US citizen or permanent resident, and one has to apply in their first or second year of graduate school. But you can find out more at the information sessions. The information is out on MindTracker, as Dr. Long noted, and you only need to attend one of those two sessions if you're interested. And then for folks who decide to apply this next round, my office offers an NSF GRFP bootcamp advising program where basically the dean of the graduate school and I walk you through the process of putting together a strong application. And I'll give more information on the boot camp at those info sessions. But again, you don't have to come to both, just choose one. I'm trying to offer different times that might be convenient for everybody. Fulbright Student Program. This is an opportunity for overseas research or teaching. Graduate students tend to be particularly interested in the research option. This can be a great way if you know your dissertation research warrants that you be overseas. This can be a great way to fund that. And it is a 9-month opportunity, typically like an academic year. Again, any decisions to apply for Fulbright have to be made in conjunction with your advisor. I know we got at least, all right, we have a master's student, we got a PhD student, particularly for PhD students, right? And so there's an information session coming up. I actually have one on April 16th or May 8th that you can choose. And those are out on MindTracker. And there's also a really cool special Fulbright Friday on April 25th. And it's with a colleague of mine who is a retired State Department official. The State Department funds the Fulbright program. And she used to manage all of the Fulbright programs in the Western Hemisphere. So she's going to talk a little bit about her academic and professional trajectory and just get everybody fired up about Fulbright. So, and there is a boot camp for that as well. And we'll discuss the boot camp at the information sessions. So basically though, if you go out to like MindTracker and type in fellowships, it'll bring up my office's page and you can see all of this stuff. But normally Dr. Long is going to be your person. I'm just your person if you decide to go for one of these. And then there's two other programs that we're not hyping on this particular slide. They're a little more specific to foreign language study. But I also work with graduate students and undergrads applying for the Boren Awards and for the Critical Language Scholarship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to expand on, what I noted earlier about joining your professional associations, right? Joining clubs here on campus, connecting with your advisor, connecting with your department to learn about what are the opportunities that they're aware of that you can take advantage of. And all this comes down to really learning from your network. And if you don't have a network, you need to start getting one. And that involves connecting with folks internally at UTEP and externally, right? And today we're really, really fortunate to have Miss Leslie Rodriguez, who is a UTEP minor alum ×2. She has her master's degree. And she recently joined the graduate school as the senior coordinator for student success. And why did I invite her? Well, Leslie brings a great perspective on applying for external funding. She has participated in the application process for Fulbright. And I invited her today to talk about her experience in the application process. And you may not be considering applying for Fulbright, but what you can learn from her can apply to other fellowships that you may be applying for. So I want to turn it over to Leslie, and I will leave this slide up unless you want me to take it down so we can spotlight you. Let me stop my share. And I invite Leslie to share her experience.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Long. So I actually met Jen through these workshops and somehow like we all worked together. And honestly, it was a really nice experience. Her workshops are wonderful. And even though I didn't get the award, I got so much more from these workshops. Like one, my writing got so much better because she helps you from beginning to end. And she's amazing at what she does. Go to Jen's office. And then you also get to connect with different people within your own programs. You get to meet people from programs you probably wouldn't have met before, which is really nice. And you get a different perspective. And they also like get to check your essays. And there you can see between each other like what you can improve on. And they give you their own perspective, which is really nice. I have currently a friend who's in Romania right now, and he's had a wonderful experience. His name is Ricky, and he has wonderful advice when it comes to Fulbright, because that was my personal experience. I didn't get to apply for the NSGF, I believe. And so Jen is wonderful at connecting you with who you need to connect to, but I also am very grateful that my own advisors pushed me to keep applying because I was like, no. And then they were like, no, do it one more time, just so I could get a different perspective. And so my application's constantly approved. And again, you guys already have the no, and there's so much more you can take away. And this is something you'll also hear once you go to Jen's events or even with Dr. Long. You already have the no. What more can you lose? So I highly recommend you go with Dr. Long and Jen when it comes to your application processes.
And Leslie, I wonder if you could tell us about like what programs you applied for and what
So,
the timeline was for you. Because as I said before, like planning
mm,
ahead, how long did it take you? And what did you have to
so
consider?
I think the workshops that Jen offered, they were about like 6 months total. Maybe I'm wrong because we had to select the country that we wanted. And I was applying for ETA because I come from a linguistics background and I also get my teaching certificate here at UTEP. And so I decided to go for the ETA. And every time, even though I already had something in the like I had done this process before, it still took 6 months between choosing a country, talking to my advisors, and getting those references in, and making sure that my application was very strong because as an ETA, you only get one page. And so for them to know me from beginning to end on one page is not enough space. And so again, the earlier you start, the better. And then that's how you can take off the filler language that you have in your applications. Maybe for some you have like 2 pages, if not more, but Dr. Long and Jen are wonderful, I'm sure, at helping you get to where you need to get to.
Thank you, Leslie. Are there any particular questions for Leslie? Okay, because I do have a little bit of amount of time, I wanted to go through the pivot with you all before we depart, and then I'll open it up to questions. Let's see here. Okay, so as I said before about Pivot, once you log on, you'll be able to create an account. And so you'll see that I already created my account. And so here I am. And this is what you're going to do. So when you log on, Chandler, after you create your Pivot account, you'll see your name up here. And you'll be able to you can either do a simple search or an advanced search. I always say go for the advanced search. Now, if you've done literature reviews before, chances are that you've learned that if you just enter in one word, engineering, you're going to come up with 1,000,001 articles, right? And so you've probably been trained in your mind to narrow it down more specifically, like civil engineering and research methods or what have you. But for this, I personally like to start off really, really broad. So I'd like to come up with all of the opportunities. So I'm just going to go through an example here, and I'm going to identify some criterias that may be relevant to you. So let's say that I'm going to identify I'm a citizen of the United States, and maybe I want to also look for deadlines. So please select on or after. And maybe you're not ready to apply yet, but your deadline is going to be after June 1st. Okay. And again, there's a number of things that you can filter. So we all have one thing in common here today, right? We're graduate students. So let's identify that. And then you also can filter out exclude opportunities. We won't do that yet. If you become more savvy in this, you can do that. Let's see. And I think, oh, look at this. Let's use geology for an example. And then we're going to search. And again, you saw that the different criteria I used, but here we come up with 38 results. That's great, you know, and we already filtered that the application deadline is after June 1st. So it gives you some time, right? And so you see here, like the graduate student fellowship program, you see a graduate thesis award through the Canadian Study of Petroleum Geologists, lots of different things. And so now that you've done your search, this is up to you as the prospective applicant to identify what are you eligible for. So over here you see like, okay, geology or science, maybe you're really particular in paleontology. So what happens when you narrow it down even more? And so here you'll see that there's even more specific opportunities for you. And so I encourage you to take a look at this pivot database. You can also save when you click on these opportunities. You can save your search. You can save particular award solicitations. You could email it to yourself. There's a number of different things that you can do. And so I encourage you to take a look at this. If you want more, you know, one-on-one help with this, the Research and Innovation Office is available to help you, or send me an email. I'm happy to sit down with you and help you go through some of these. But it all comes back to that first piece of information I shared with you earlier about planning ahead, because there's so many deadlines, there's so many requirements, essays and whatnot. And so you really want to pay attention to what are these opportunities for you, and are you eligible, and what do you need to apply? So I'm going to stop my share just so you have my information. I will drop my email in the chat, but I wanted to open it up to questions or thoughts and feedback.
Yeah, I had two quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
So is Pivot, like I know you showed those other databases like the Illinois one and the UCLA one. Is Pivot UTEP's own version of it?
Pivot is an international database, but
Oh, okay.
in order to have access to it, usually the institution pays for it. And so as UTEP students, as UTEP researchers, you have access to it by creating an account.
Okay.
The Illinois website link is just an opportunity for you to see what they post. It's another publicly available database.
Yes, and because these are external awards, even though it's, you know, maintained by the University of Illinois, they encourage students everywhere to use it. It was really cool. I got to meet the person who created it at a conference, and I was like, yay, it's a great resource. I actually prefer it to the UCLA one quite a bit.
Okay, great. So you kind of use that in conjunction with Pivot. Gotcha.
Yep.
And then will we be able to look over the PowerPoint after the presentation?
Yep, I'm going to send it to you all.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Thank you.
A note about the Illinois database, it is not anywhere near as powerful as Pivot. The thing about Pivot though, and I agree with Dr. Long, go straight to the advanced search, but like the more stuff you enter, particularly keywords, the less results you're going to get. So I was
Yes.
sitting with a student one time when he was working on it, and he was entering all these like hyper specific keywords like biomedical engineering, breast cancer, blah, blah, blah. And so he hit search, 2 results. And he was like, Ms. Jen, what did I do wrong? And I was like, I would say don't even put in keywords, right? Like you'll get a ton of hits. But for me personally, I'm a greedy person and I'd rather have more and have to sift through them than have less.
And that's why, you know, if you've been trained to do a literature search, and, you know, librarians will tell you if you're too broad, you're going to get way too many results, right? And so in your mind, you think, I can't be too broad. And so you want to be really, really specific. But this is totally the opposite when you're on Pivot. You want to be as broad as possible so you can see all the opportunities available to you.
Jen, Marianne, there's a question for you on the chats.
Oh, okay.
I am a creative writing MFA student, and any advice on opportunities for my departments?
Yeah, I would encourage you to talk with your advisor and find out what opportunities are available to you. And so chances are there may be internal awards to serve as a research assistant or a teaching assistant, but also connecting with your professors to find out what are the external awards available to you. And, you know, Fulbright is available to any discipline. And so if you're thinking about an experience overseas, you can consider that. Also using Pivot to identify what are the opportunities available to folks in the arts, right? There's a number of opportunities for you. And so I encourage you, starting with your network inside, maybe attending the Fulbright information session, using the Pivot database, and any other resources that you may have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it would kind of depend on what you're seeking the funding for, right? Like, so I'm going to tell the master's students a dirty secret. Funding for a master's can be really tough. Particularly external funding for a master's can be really tough. A lot of funding agencies want to fund the PhD because these are the folks that they see as pushing the research forward. So I always just like to be transparent. Dr. Long is much nicer than me, but like the other thing is there's no magic list, right? Like, okay, I'm in this field, here's the list of stuff I should be applying for. Every year students want that. Every year we will not deliver it because then you'd all be applying for the same 2 things, and that's no good. You know, and as a graduate student, I think it's really important that the funding fit your purposes, like the right funding for you at the right time, and only you and you know your advisor can kind of determine that. But I am desperate to work with a creative writer on a Fulbright project, and as Dr. Long mentioned, Fulbright is all disciplines, but they have a special category for people in the creative and performing arts where you can submit a portfolio, and you get kind of different consideration than the average Fulbright applicant. And in a lot of cases, being in the arts can help your chances of getting the award because they typically aren't getting enough arts applicants. They want more.
Okay. I've tried to get into Pivot before, and I'm even trying at the moment, and it doesn't show the University of Texas El Paso. So when I have logistical questions like that, would it be?
You might have clicked the wrong button from the get-go,
Yeah,
right? Like, you know how you go in there and there's the 2 buttons? I
I
think
will
you
show
actually,
you.
yeah, Marianne goes, I think you actually you don't want to use the one with your university credentials, which seems counterintuitive.
That's exactly right, Miss Jen. And
Oh,
so,
boom. Okay. I was like, I need to stop talking in case I'm making this up.
no, you are exactly right. So when
I spent
you,
a lot of time on Pivot.
yeah, when you go to Pivot, up on the top, you want to create an account.
Yeah.
And then instead of using your institutional login credentials, you use your email address to create your own account. And then you'll select UTEP. So,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then once you create your account and meet all these 1800 criteria for a password that no one remembers,
Right.
they'll send you an email to confirm your account, and then you can start using it.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
What other questions or thoughts or concerns or stories do we have to share before I let you all go?
I just had a quick question about the GRFP, like the boot camp.
Sure, I will do my best to answer, and if not, we have Miss Jen who will answer.
Gotcha. This is my first semester as a grad student, but I know like the deadline's usually in October or something like that. Would it be like if I went to the boot camp, would it be applying for like the year after? Is that how that would work?
So let me
Have
ask you a
that.
question. Do you already have a master's?
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, you're not eligible. You would have had to apply as a master's student. It's their rule, not mine. I'm not a huge fan. So that is the issue, is like if somebody already had, like, so if you'd gone straight into the PhD, you'd be fine. And you'd be
Okay.
applying at the beginning of your second year. Are you, let's see, what is your graduate program? Your evolutionary ecology and evolutionary biology. I'm trying to think of some other stuff you might want to look at, but I think you're really going to need to lean on Pivot, because the NSF GRFP is one of those like greatest hits kind of awards. I hate that rule. I hate it, hate it, hate it. And like, I was like, man, I bet he's going to tell me he's got a master's already. And that's also why I'm trying to get people to apply as an undergrad. So tell your friends, like all the undergrads in the lab, tell them to apply.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and also, ask your advisor if they're writing any grants, and they can write in, funding for you as a graduate student researcher. That's something that you can look into, but Pivot will be a good resource. And if you're involved in any associations too, take a look to see what opportunities there are.
So you might come up against the same eligibility issue for this one, but let me ask you a question. So the Department of Energy has this super cool, it's computational science graduate fellowship, and it's for any field as long as you use as long as there's a computational piece or modeling or something of that nature. I don't know if that applies to you.
I think part of it will have to do with building phylogenetic
Okay.
trees. And,
Okay,
like, doing
take
stuff in
a
R.
look. It's the DOE CSGF. Take a peek. Like I said, you may encounter the same eligibility issue with the GRFP, but they also like to pride themselves on being different than the GRFP.
Okay.
I don't know if your project has anything to do with national security. I think you could make an argument for a lot of things. But there is the National Defense Engineering and Science Graduate Fellowship, commonly known as the ND, as in dog, SEG.
Okay.
So take a look at those for giggles. And those are for earlier in your career, but the NSF also has funding like for when you're writing your dissertation. There's a doctoral dissertation improvement grant, like the DDRIG, but definitely lean on Pivot. And I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news about the GRFP.
Okay. Is that because like I didn't go straight from like a bachelor's to a PhD? Like that's like the rule?
So basically, the rule is you have two chances to apply. One of them is at the beginning of your last year of undergrad. And then if it doesn't work out that time, your second chance is to apply in your first or second year of graduate school. And so that means master's, if master's comes first, it's, first or second year of a master's program. If you go straight into a PhD, it's first or second year of a PhD program. But basically, because you already have the master's in hand, it renders you ineligible. You would have had to apply during your master's program.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yeah. So when they say first or second year, they mean truly first or second year of graduate school, right? Not like the specific program.
Gotcha.
And Jen mentioned like a few Department of Defense and Department of Energy and whatnot. And so if you go back to the research and innovation tab, you can see some of those different organizations that offer particular funding opportunities. But Pivot would probably be your best choice because chances are for this, these opportunities are more for faculty who are looking to apply for grants. But that also gives you an opportunity to ask your advisor, hey, are there any grants that you're applying for that you'd be willing to write me in as a graduate researcher?
I have a few questions as well.
Mhm.
So I am studying my master's degree in computer science, my first semester, but I'm still taking prerequisites because I was graduate from finance analyst. Am I considered a graduate student already for fellowships, all that?
It would depend on like your transcript. Like, has your
Yeah,
transcript already
I'm accepted
conferred?
as graduate student. Yeah.
You're accepted, but has your transcript conferred you with a bachelor's degree?
You know, my transcript is now master's degree.
Oh, it's master's degree. Okay, so yeah, then you would be considered a graduate degree. So if you're thinking
Right.
about like the NSF, GRFP,
That was my second question. Is that only for citizens or that open for international students as well?
Citizens are permanent residents.
permanent residents, yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Oh,
just because it's government funding, they're always gonna
Yeah.
put those nitpicky things on there.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not eligible, but thank you.
But use Pivot because you can filter
Yeah.
your citizenship status. Mhm.
Thank you for
Yeah,
your.
thank you very much. Any other questions? I will end it if not, and I'll send you all the slide deck.
This was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, and thank you to my
you.
colleagues, Miss Jen and Miss Leslie, for their hard work and expertise. I greatly appreciate it.
Same.
Alrighty, I will stop recording.